I built that bridge with my own hands the summer my daughter turned 12. It wasn't much, just a sturdy wooden span over the narrowest stretch of my private lake, connecting my cabin to the far bank where I like to hunt and fish. But for me and my family, that bridge was everything. Early mornings casting lines, quiet walks under moonlight, my kid learning to ride her bike across it with me cheering her on. I own every inch of that lake, 60 acres surrounded by pine woods and rolling hills. When I bought it 20 years ago, it was nothing but an overgrown pond and a half-rotted dam. I spent my weekends clearing brush, fixing the dam, and dredging it out until it was deep and clear enough to swim in. Then 3 years ago, a fancy eco-resort popped up next door. Some slick developer bought the land on the far side of the ridge and slapped up luxury cabins, a spa, and a golf course. He formed an HOA to manage the new neighborhood, and next thing I knew, their guests were kayaking on my lake, tossing beer cans on my dock, and crossing my bridge like it was their personal nature trail. At first, I tried to be civil. I put up signs. I talked to the HOA board, a bunch of suit-wearing vacation homeowners who cared more about rental income than property lines. They shrugged me off, said the bridge was an eyesore that encouraged trespassing, and hinted I should just sell them the lake. I refused, obviously. That bridge was mine. The lake was mine, so they got sneaky. One weekend last spring, I came up to find my bridge in pieces. Someone, probably a contractor hired by the HOA, had chainsawed it apart and tossed the lumber into the shallows. No note, no apology. Just my hard work destroyed, the water littered with splintered beams. I was furious, but not surprised. What they didn't realize was that my little bridge wasn't the only thing tying my lake together. The old dam I'd restored decades ago controlled the lake's entire water level. Without it, my lake would shrink back to a muddy creek bed, and the resort's main selling point, exclusive lakeside views and recreation, would dry up overnight. So I made a plan. I called my lawyer, triple-checked my deeds and water rights, and waited for the peak summer weekend when the resort was fully booked. Then I drove up to my cabin, walked down to the dam, and opened the sluice gates wide. It took about 6 hours for the water to start dropping. By dawn, the exclusive lakeside cabins were perched awkwardly above a widening stretch of cracked mud and stranded kayaks. Guests were furious. The HOA president banged on my cabin door, demanding I close the dam. I told him to get off my land before I called the sheriff, which was funny because I'd already called them myself to report the bridge vandalism. Turns out the HOA had no right to touch my bridge, much less destroy it. The sheriff served them a hefty trespassing and property damage complaint while they scrambled to explain to their wealthy guests why the lakefront resort now overlooked a trickling creek. The resort went bankrupt within the year. Nobody wants to pay $500 a night to stare at a muddy ditch. The land's for sale now. Some of the cabins have already been torn down. But my lake? It's coming back on my terms. I'm restoring the dam, rebuilding the bridge stronger than before, and this time I'm fencing off every inch of shoreline. They thought they could steal my peace with money and arrogance. Instead, they learned what happens when you mess with a stubborn old lake owner who knows exactly which valve to turn. So now, when my daughter visits with her kids, we stand on the new bridge, fishing poles in hand, looking out over the calm water. No resorts, no trespassers. Just our lake, the way it was always meant to be. And if another slick HOA ever thinks they can mess with it, well, they'd better know how to swim in the mud.